And we're back, baby. I'm here in the chair with my boy Eddie, and this delicious water from Onda Riz. It's the best, right, bro?
It's the best, bro.
This is our sponsor. We love him.
And the best is the sponsor.
Yes, and the best guest we got a cold water for you, Felix. How are you?
Love it, man. Mondariz is very good, man. I'm very honored to be here.
You're going to put it on your restaurants?
Absolutely.
Today's special.
I am a left.
You left it.
left.
I know. Let me put a little coaster here. I left it.
Today's special because I've been following Felix for a while, and he's the restaurant guy. He knows the other side of what I don't know, the financial, the selling of closings, openings. So this is one we can fire away at. Felix, thanks for coming, buddy. How are you?
It's honestly a pleasure. Big fan for a long time.
Yeah. We've been following you for a while, and I told Dad I got to get this guy on. I've been stalking him. I might as well invite him. How we can pick his brain.
But this is the first time you guys meet?
Physically.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we've had our Instagram relationship for like 2 years.
Yeah.
My dog.
But you know what's crazy? Before we get into it, I was at the UFC fight this
I saw
Saturday,
that.
right?
I'm surprised I didn't get a phone call with any tickets. I was just
No, man. I got
You got invited. You got Sprinter.
Yeah, I got
Sprinter.
I got invited, so I had to order the Sprinter. At least put something in there, you know. So then, long story short, I'm at the event and I'm walking around, and then I had a couple guys, like maybe like 4 or 5 guys throughout the night, tell me, I love the podcast. I love it. And it was impressive because to me, it's something that, you know, we put a lot of work into it and people kind of see that. But it's more of like what they say about it. And it's always like the same thing. I love the podcast and the information we get out of it, you know. So
yeah, I've never gotten a negative comment.
Yeah. So we're always trying to be different, bringing people out here and showing them a different side of the world and Miami more than anything else. You have a lot of content out there that talks bad about the city, and we always like to highlight like the good part about the city. Okay, so Felix, for those people who don't know who you are, explain to them a little about your history, your background, and what is it that you do.
In that camera right there, buddy.
Oh, shit. So I own a company called F+B Hospitality Brokerage. We're a real estate company that focuses primarily on bars, restaurants, nightclubs. That's all we do, 24 hours a day. We don't pretend to know anything else, and, you know, that's it. My job is to make sure that restaurants don't make mistakes, that they choose wisely. You know, a lot of landlords, developers, brokers try pitching restaurants into, you know, the lure of Miami, the sexiness of Miami, how easy it is, and how every restaurant's making millions and billions of dollars, and it's crazy that, you know, they haven't opened up and it's so easy. My job is to be real with them, and unfortunately, you know, I keep it a little too real. But for me, I would rather them have the right information than, you know, start a build out and, you know, and take their life savings and be out in 6 months, lose everything. And I've seen it so many times.
And how'd you get into this business?
You want the PG version?
No, I want the hardcore version.
The uncut.
Give it to me.
Go ahead, Felix.
All right, this is going to take a few minutes, but
the floor is yours.
I used to be a nightclub promoter in Boston.
You look like a Boston guy.
I'm originally New York.
Oh, you
Brooklyn.
You look like mafia style.
I said mafia. Yeah, I said mafia. He's probably killed a couple people.
That's the Brooklyn side.
What do you really do, Felix?
We won't get into that.
Forget about it.
We won't get into that just yet. But I was a nightclub promoter in Boston, having the time of my life, you know, partying my ass off. One night I come home, you know, I had after hours at my house every night. We ran card games, and, you know, it was the dream. Right. But one night, I think 3 o'clock in the morning, everybody leaves my house. I'm like on my couch, you know, smoked a J, and all I want is a Snapple. And nobody wanted to fucking deliver me a Snapple. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to start a company that's going to deliver you anything you want. Next day, 3 cell phones and a printer. We started a company called Night Owl Deliveries, which started out with convenience store goods, led up to local restaurants. Before you know it, we had such a big impact on the city of Boston that the universities were giving us their meal points. And now we're getting kids PlayStations from Best Buy. We're now getting contracts for Cheesecake Factory and P.F. Chang's. We were the first ones in the United States to deliver some of those people who said, restaurant chains that said, we'll never deliver. Our product does not travel well, doesn't work, you know. Before you know it, you know, I've told the story several times. We met Matt Maloney, who was the CEO of Grubhub. At the time, there were no apps. It was just websites, and, you know, everything was, you know, analog. Everything was very difficult, and you didn't have your phones and apps. So he had this great tech on the website that allowed you to order, pick up, and delivery from restaurants. At the time, all the restaurants were doing their own delivery. So we kind of, you know, took this technology and like, wow, this is great. So we put, the hundreds of restaurants in Boston that we had on this platform. And it was a huge success. And it was such a success that Matt brought us to Chicago to launch Grubhub Chicago through the Night Owl service, where 90% of the restaurants doing the delivery were through us. Before you know, a couple years later, Grubhub buys us out 2008. Looking for the next move, met my wife, and we were kind of over Boston already. Once you hit a certain age, you become the oldest, promoter, creepy guy in Boston.
Yeah. You don't want that.
You got to go. So I asked her, I was like, where do you want to live? She was like, palm trees make me happy. I was like, fuck it. We had friends. We went to school in Boston. They convinced us to come down to Miami. What I noticed was at the time there's, the used cooking oil business. And we saw that there was real money in it. So we came down here and started doing the used cooking oil business.
Can you tell me some details on that business?
Sure, where we pick up used cooking oil from restaurants. Like the restaurants have fryers. And in the back where the dumpsters are, you have those oil containers.
Yep.
So what we do is we pick up those used oil, and that's pretty much the main ingredient in biodiesel. So you take some of the French fries and stuff left over, you sell it as feedstock to South America, and you collect the used cooking oil and sell it to bigger companies that convert it to biodiesel.
That's incredible. I didn't know that existed.
Yeah. We built up about, a couple thousand restaurants in South Florida. And based on the numbers I got every morning, we knew what restaurants were opening and closing based on the oil.
Yeah, of course.
So if they keep it clean, they're changing it a lot, they're doing well. Once the oil cuts down, or if they're not changing as much, the restaurant's in trouble. So the real estate just came natural.
Literally their fuel costs and their fuel levels.
That's incredible. Yeah. I used to work at a restaurant. It was Dandy Bear. When I was young, at 14 years old, and I had to change the oil.
Dandy Bear.
And he would make me change the oil once a day on the weekends.
And that shit is hot.
Yeah, how the fuck?
That shit is hot.
And you smell like grease at the end of
French fries.
Yeah. You smell like French fries. But I remember looking at that, and it's all dark and it's black. And I'd be like, man, at the end of the day, it's nasty. You're chicken fingers and stuff in there. The next day, it's nice and fresh.
Right. And that's how companies kind of offer you money for it, by how light it is. So the lighter it is, the better it is.
The better it is. That's incredible. I didn't think that there was that type of business behind the restaurant.
I'm telling you Felix, for you in Miami, this is obviously a day in Miami. If we were to give the city a medical exam, how are we doing health-wise with the restaurant business? Are we good? Are we okay? Are we dying?
I don't think we're dying. I think that we needed it. And this is a terrible thing to say, but because of the amount of restaurants that opened during the COVID boom, with everybody from New York and Canada and Paris and LA and Russia and Argentina, everybody coming and opening the amount of restaurants, we haven't seen that much action in over 20, 25 years. So I think that it was only natural that, now we're starting to get a very big impact of closings. It started last year. We saw it. We did a restaurant video called Restaurant Armageddon. But we had to be honest. I had to be the one to say it because nobody else was saying it. Everybody else is painting this beautiful picture of how much money everybody's making in Miami.
Yeah.
And also you have to remember that a lot of these guys who open restaurants, they're not necessarily doing it for the money. You have the EB programs that give visas out. It's more of a business now.
How many restaurants do you think are closing every month, more or less? So you have is that number out there?
He just posted a list just recently.
Yeah, I usually do lists, but we're averaging we're talking just
county-wise.
I don't know about county-wise because I try not to go into the Homesteads and the Kendalls, but just immediate,
our area,
Miami proper, you have about 4 or 5 a day.
4 or 5 a day?
Yeah.
And do you see any specific restaurant? Is it ceviche restaurants or Mexican restaurants? Do you notice anything like that? Or
I think Miami has no prejudice, and nobody's safe.
That's a good point.
Nobody's safe.
Wow, and we talked off the air. The tariffs now coming in. People are scared, panicking even.
Restaurants are worried.
Right?
Restaurants are worried
now.
Guys, the last couple of months, restaurants already had issues. We have the summer season, which extends from the day after F1 to Art Basel. That is the time that, we're dead. Everybody's dead. I don't care who you are. Your numbers are off.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of people say that, and I know that's true.
Yep.
Do you know why, or explain to us why? I have a pretty good idea, but can you explain to us why restaurant business during that time goes down?
Sure. Everybody's gone. Everybody's gone. It's hot. Neighborhoods, for example, Hollandale, which is, made up partially of Canadians. They go to Canada. Sunny Isles, consisting of Russians. Russians start traveling. All the parents and kids, everybody tries to go north or they go to Europe. They go to, and that's it.
Okay, because you would think like kids being home, you would be ordering more food.
Right.
But
no, and even for us doing events and stuff, you kind of plan away from that because people aren't going to be in town. Like you never wanted something on Memorial because the city's empty. The people already left.
Yeah, there's less.
Especially now with all the spring breakers that they got with all those $100 parking tickets and shit.
I don't know about you guys. I love the summer. Being able to get reservations at all my favorite restaurants.
Yeah. For us, obviously, we go out and everything like that. But like we were talking, like people haven't found that break that they were looking for when Trump came in, right? Everybody was like, "Oh, it's going to be better." But then the tariffs came, so now people are like holding back even more. Is what we were talking about when it comes to seafood sales or any kind of sales. Like people just aren't paying, bro. They're just not paying.
The more vendors I speak to, whether it's produce or alcohol or meat,
everything's up.
Everything's up, and receivables are just getting backed up, right?
Oh man, it happens to me. It happens to me, and it's just like I want my people to get a break. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon.
And with all the other shit that they worried about, now they're worried about ICE and a lot of their staff getting deported. And now they're like, shit, we didn't even have time to prepare for this.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. Yeah, and restaurants struggle big time getting good employees. That's like one of the biggest things I see.
Before we move on to some good news, what's the biggest closing you've seen? Like, wow, can't believe this place closed. I mean, I've seen some of your stuff. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I think we're not done yet.
Huh?
I think they haven't even been announced yet.
Really?
Yeah.
But is there anyone in particular that you say, wow, I can't believe it's closed?
That they didn't make it?
No. No, I think there's going to be more closings announced that you guys are going to be pretty surprised about. And at the end of the day, it's not, I think you guys really nail it with your podcast and what you guys say. And I always tell everybody that the scene here is changing. Maybe in 2019, we all wanted out-of-town concepts to be here. But I think we all support the locals, and I don't think anybody gives a shit anymore about the big chain or
I agree with you.
That come down,
And they come. Even the big restaurants, they've been moving in like crazy. And you're like, where are you from again? Like, I just went to a restaurant 2 days ago from Philly. And they came in here now, and they're taking full advantage of the Wynwood area and stuff like that. But it's true what you said. We got to support all the local spots because the other ones are coming in, and they don't care who they're pushing out. But anyways, before that, now let's get to some good stuff.
Wait, I wanted to ask.
Go ahead.
What do you think is the biggest skill? Or first, do you see a lot of like entrepreneurs opening restaurants, or do you see a lot of like chef owners opening restaurants
or corporations?
I think that we see a little bit of everything, but I think the successful ones, 90% of them are the guys that know what they're doing.
Chef
operators that maybe have a really good finance partner.
That's what I was going to say, yeah. And what do you think is the biggest skill for a chef that's going to open a restaurant? What do you think is the biggest skill for him to like understand? Because it's like the same thing, like a doctor opens a clinic.
Yep.
Usually if you don't have that entrepreneurial side, it's going to be tough for you, so you need to partner up with someone else.
I think it's knowing how to save money, knowing how to move and hustle and cut costs, especially in the dead season between May and, the end of November.
So being in tune with your business.
Absolutely.
To the penny.
Yeah.
And I've heard from a lot of restaurant friends of mine that the biggest factor in your success is keeping a low rent or a low lease. What do you say about that? Or keeping, like, they prefer to start with something small instead of going huge.
So the rule of thumb is to always keep your rent under 10% of what you think your projected sales are going to be. The more over 10% you go, you get more into the danger zone. Listen, unfortunately, you can't be under 10% in areas like Brickell and downtown, and some people want to be in Wynwood, and some people want to be in Midtown, because that's where the density is. Look at even Coconut Grove now. I loved Coconut Grove 2 years ago. Now it's getting a little priced out for me. We put El Bagel in, we put in La Cabrera. We stole those last couple of deals. Now, anything over $100, $120 a foot makes no sense for me.
What's a typical lease term? Sign.
So again, everything changes because, we love landlords and developers so much, but now everybody wants to do, all the landlords and developers want 5 years with 5 year options because A, they hate paying brokers on 10 years, especially if restaurants don't make it. They lose, a little piece of that money. And number two, like a lot of Wynwood landlords and developers did, which fucked restaurants like Beaker and Gray and a lot of other guys. Once you hit your market price, all you need is one comp to let the landlord raise the rent to whatever they want.
And after that happens,
it's a wrap.
You're done.
That's it. You know your costs. You can.
No, you put.
What about Coral Gables? We're in Coral Gables now. I mean, what's your status?
We still have a lot of demand for the Gables. As long as you know what you're doing, Miracle Mile, Giralda, great areas. As long as you know what you're focusing on, as long as you already know you did your homework and you're like, okay, this is not a nighttime thing where the bar's not going to do well after 9 o'clock unless you're Hillstone or Motec. And as long as you can navigate within those channels, then you have a good shot of success. If you concentrate on the offices, if you concentrate on residential delivery, you have a great 5-mile delivery zone in the Gables off of Miracle in those areas. Stay in your wheelhouse, stay what you're comfortable with, focus on the people that are here, and you have a shot of success.
I wanted to ask you, because this is a super interesting topic to me. And honestly, I really appreciate you even coming in and opening this up because, we deal with restaurants all the time. Sure, so this is a different side of the business that I hear about through them, but not usually directly. Franchising. I hear it could be a gift and a curse,
Sure.
I've had several friends that franchise, and at the end they tell me it was the worst thing that they did. And I've had others that franchise, and it goes successful, I wanted to get your opinion on that, and what's the best route, or what do you think is like the pros and cons of franchising?
I think that it is.
Do you help with franchising at all? Or?
I try not to get into the franchising thing. There's just so many moving pieces. And, I've helped restaurants who used to franchise go private again because they found on their end that maybe the franchisees won't do the brand justice, that maybe they let the brand go. Now they're like, wow, right, our brand went to shit. We gotta take it back and make it strong again. And then there's other brands that are like, I've heard that have approached me, hey, these guys are looking for visas. Will they take brands? People who don't care about, it's your baby. Like if you're saying that, then, you're on the clock already.
Yeah.
For me.
But if they flash you the cash, some people might just take it,
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've heard that a lot of franchise situations, or the people who are coming in as a franchisee, think that just slapping the name or the logo on top of the place is just going to make it work, so they don't understand like the actual work that takes behind it.
Yeah. Well, how many guys do said that did that mentality and like, hey, let's just open up in Brickell and slap the tag on. Everybody's going to love us. So we're going to do great.
And I've also heard of like other scenarios where there's companies that tell you they're going to create you a franchise, and then they end up taking your money and like nothing ever happens on the line, or they're going to find you investors, etc. too.
A lot of those kind of guys.
Yeah.
Scammers.
A lot.
Big time.
It's Miami, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
you know what? What's the situation like? When I never go to Fort Lauderdale.
Right.
I know there's something going on over there. What's the status for Fort Lauderdale? Is it changed from Miami? Is it different? Is it more aggressive? Is it less aggressive? When it comes to who's closing, who's opening, and rent?
I think that we've seen over the last year, because I always post my RIP stories.
Yeah.
And there was a lot this year. Now, again, for me, I don't personally don't recommend Fort Lauderdale. That's just my personal opinion. For me, it's still too seasonal, just like Hollywood Boulevard. A lot of those areas, the rents are still too high for you to make money 12 months a year.
Really?
Yeah.
And they have even bigger gaps of dead zone.
Bigger times of dead zone. And also a lot of those spaces are humongous. And taking a 5,000 square foot space on Las Olas, for me, that's just too risky.
It is, right? It is.
Unless you're getting some kind of percentage deal.
So let's say there's a situation where an investor comes in, or owner-operator, chef-operator comes in, looks good, you get him into a location. After you sign the lease and get him in, what else do you help with, or what's like the next steps after that you usually like?
Well, most of my help is actually before that.
Gotcha.
Once they get in, I'm kind of like, good luck. I kind of guided you with a force as much as I can. But for me, one of the biggest issues that we have in South Florida, the number one preventer of restaurants opening, grease traps.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I hear about that all the time.
Grease traps.
Explain that, because a lot of guys tell me that. A lot of my friends, restaurant owners, chefs,
they couldn't open.
They couldn't open because of the grease trap, or because of the, what's the other thing that goes through the vent?
The hoods.
The hoods, right? Another hood problem, and it's thousands and thousands of dollars, Explain to us what's the city's approach to that? Why is it like that? Why is the grease trap always a problem?
Okay, so it doesn't really have as much to do with the city as the county. So before 2019, and this is the explanation that I always get in terms of the city. Before 2019, through the 90s and the 2000s, restaurants would pull permits, show Durham that they did the work, never did it, never closed it out. At some point in like 2018, I think the city noticed. And it became such a big shit show that in 2019, they passed FOG 2.0, which pretty much starts everything from scratch. That if you need an updated grease trap, we're not going to give you a CU without an updated grease trap. So literally every space had to start from zero. So now you take thousands of applications in an office that only has a couple of people working. That's what happened.
And what's a grease trap?
So that is either the thing in the kitchen, in the floor, or behind your restaurant, where the oil from the fryer
gets dumped.
Gets dumped, but between the sewer and the water, the actual water system, it's to prevent the oil from getting into the water system.
Into the aquifers.
Yeah. So, for example, downtown, whenever it rains and it floods, that's one of the reasons. Because everything gets backed up through the lines, it goes into the street. Now you got a little flood going.
So then, if you don't have that in order right now, then they could shut you down?
No, they just won't let you open.
They won't let you open.
So they'll wait for the next guy to take it. Like, they'll send you letters, and, most restaurants, they have time. Like, from the time that Durham comes there, they'll tell them, okay, you need to file. But it's faster because you could continue operating and do it, when you have the money, and because it's a process. You need an engineer, you need plans, you need an inspection, then they need to come back, and you need to do the work. It could take anywhere between 6 to 12 months to upgrade it, and anywhere up to 2 to 2.5 years to replace it.
That's crazy. How much does that cost, more or less?
It's not the price. It's the restaurants that are paying rent for 2.5 years that can't open, and all the money that they had saved up to open a restaurant. That's it. They're behind the eight ball. They're in debt even further than they thought they were going to be. And those are usually the guys that, I'm sorry to say, have a less percentage of making it.
Yeah, but that doesn't make sense to me. Why would you go into a business?
Because they don't know.
Crazy to me. That
nobody explains. Nobody says anything to them. People care about commissions. People care about, leasing a building so they can take that lease, show the bank, get money for the finance. Then they can, it's Miami.
That's crazy to me. I would never sign a lease knowing that I have to do a whole build out and I'm going to have a problem with the city and pay rent. Usually you try to negotiate the lease that you pay rent once you're ready to operate or something like that, especially if you're doing a build out.
You can try, but guess what? You do a build out. The landlord, okay, you're in default. All right, I'll take your keys. I'll take your equipment. Just sign everything over to me. Next tenant comes in, double the rent, and could even get key money. I cannot tell you how many times restaurants have called me, and this is after they signed a lease with someone else. I really need your help. I fucked up. I took the TI money, and we started the build out. I didn't realize how long it was going to be. There's no way I'll be open by the time, and now you're on the clock. And usually when you take TI money from a landlord, like a build out money, you got to put up a personal guarantee, your house, your car, whatever it is. So forget about leaving your equipment. They take more than the equipment.
The biggest thing with the restaurant industry is you need heavy cash flow too, man.
I don't think restaurateurs really understand how much cash flow and how much real capital you need. Forget about just opening. You need 6 months of payroll.
Correct.
You need 6 months of just in case money. You need 6 months of summer money to last you through the summer. If you don't have that,
you're juggling. And the margins are small. Now, if you hit it hard, you hit it good.
Absolutely.
But most don't. So that's the problem.
Talking about hitting it hard, what areas would you recommend are some of your favorite areas when it comes to restaurants that you think people might have a larger amount of success?
So if I'm looking down the future...
If Felix is opening up a restaurant, where are you opening?
I'm looking to where I'm signing a long-term lease for cheap that still has the density, still has the right price. But even before anything, I'm like, guys, listen, if you can afford it, if you have the investors, buy the fucking real estate, guys. Like, don't be you're gonna, all you're doing is investing into somebody else's property that they're gonna take back eventually, and all that money you put in, it's gonna be gone. Buy the property if you can. In terms of neighborhoods, listen, I like up and coming neighborhoods. I like Little Haiti. I like North Bay Village. I love Little River.
Little Haiti, Little River, right?
Love Little River. Love Little Haiti. Love Mimo. Love parts of Edgewater.
Me too.
Love Buena Vista.
Buena Vista's nice.
I think it's all, and love North Miami right now. Like that 123rd, 125th corridor right now.
What about Sunset Harbor?
No, absolutely not.
No? Why?
Like, too much blood.
Really?
You have about 4 or 5 restaurants.
So they're calling it like the new beach, right? So you don't have to go into the jungle of South Beach. You can get in and out if you go to Sunset Harbor. Maybe take the Venetian.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's great.
Tell me why.
Not at $120 a foot.
Yeah.
I mean, you have 4 or 5 restaurants that publicly already announced that they closed. There's probably another 6. Not probably. There's 6 or 7 more.
Yeah,
it's not
like 2 or 3 that have stayed, right?
It's not coincidence.
So
and those 2 or 3 have great leases locked up.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Sunset, South Miami, Sunset Place area has been like a graveyard for restaurants.
I was going to ask you guys about that because this is more your neighborhood.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we've had several clients there.
My buddy Georgie Ramos has a place called Barbella. We used to be the old Taco Craft. It's a solid restaurant, but it seems to me like he's like going to be like the anchor of bringing that back. Maybe possibly get like Rock Burger to open up again, because everything sucks in Sunset Place, but South Miami's pretty cool. So it's like South Miami is and Sunset, they have like this relationship, but not really. You know what I'm saying? Because Sunset Place, hopefully they do what they got to do. But that little strip, you know what I'm talking about? In South Miami, I think has life.
And it used to, when I was younger, it used to be hot.
It's still pretty cool.
Just died out of nowhere, man.
I want to ask.
Sorry, and you assume you have UM there in the corner too, but UM doesn't translate to those places.
But there's a lot of opens and closings, like Chef Adrian's cracked, closed, and Grapes is in there. And
the Peruvian place that you went to.
That one closed.
Sriracha House didn't make it a year.
Yeah. The Umbrella, the eateries.
Right. Yeah. So I was going to ask you guys more about that because I'm trying to understand why I've had the record amount of restaurants call me to get them out of South Miami, around the Sunset Drive area. And
it's hard for me to understand. I don't know if it's, look, the only explanation that I have, the theory that I have a couple years ago was, in its heyday, the Sunset Place area was hot. People used to go to the movie theater with the anchor,
yes,
etc.,
of course.
right? The game time, all that stuff. At that time, Coconut Grove was good. Wynwood was dead. Miami Design District was dead. Coral Gables was, Coral Gables. And I feel like as these places, Brickell wasn't what it was right now. Downtown isn't what it's going to be now. And I feel like as these places have picked up, those places have just gone down, So whereas you used to be able to just, hang out at such a place and do your thing there,
all the way downtown.
Now people don't mind driving down US 1, going the other way, and just hang out over there. And I think that's kind of like what took it.
So what I've heard, because I always ask the restaurants in terms like, what do you think happened? Where do you think you went wrong with South Miami? A lot of it has to do with I either took a space that was too big because I was like, okay, a lot of the smaller places are still making it, or parking. Parking around Sunset Drive, it's tough.
It's a mission.
But, when people are like, okay, if I'm not going to South Miami, where do you recommend I go? Downtown. I love downtown 10 times more than Brickell because you're in there at half the price with the same density in terms of the delivery traffic. And
well, parking? Was there parking in downtown?
Well, it depends on, I guess, where you're going. I mean,
I don't.
But people complain about the same thing about Coral Gables, and now Coral Gables has done something smart. They incorporated the freebie, where you download an app and it's free to travel. It comes, picks you up like an Uber and takes you wherever you want.
Yeah, but I don't fit no freebie.
Well, okay, for example, Wynwood. I only like Wynwood west of Northwest 2nd to Northwest 5th because that's where all the highest grossing restaurants are.
Me too, that's where I go.
And anybody
in and out.
Anybody, I personally hate North Miami Avenue, and I tell.
Me too, brother. Me too.
Same thing. Parking's an issue.
But we don't deny ourselves to go to a good restaurant, but it's to go there and then just get right out. There's no walking around or.
If I'm going to North Miami Ave, I'm going to Doma. But the majority of the restaurants I go to are all, west of Northwest 2nd.
Yeah.
Doya, Q, Uchi. One of my favorites now, Sparrow. Joe's Pizza, Pasties, Walter Gray's, Zach the Baker.
I heard of all those and never been.
And you been to Tranan?
Tran Johnny's my boy, bro. Johnny's my boy. You kidding me? It's my favorite. It's one of my favorite.
Oh my God.
Johnny's definitely one of my favorites.
The day I ate the entire menu.
Listen, if someone is right now in the process of negotiating or looking for a lease for a restaurant, doing their planning, or looking for a spot anywhere in the city, what type of advice do you give them if they're in the process of negotiating a lease right now, or if they're looking for something in the future?
Do's and don'ts.
Besides, obviously calling you and reaching out to you, but if they have their stuff in the pipeline, what advice or what questions should they be asking, or what should they be looking at?
Don't fucking build. Do not build a restaurant from scratch.
Second generation?
Only second generation. A lot of restaurants don't know about impact fees that are, it's like $63 a foot just to convert, to a restaurant. Just to have a piece of paper saying that, okay, now you're a restaurant, $63 a foot. A lot of those numbers don't get taken into consideration. Everybody's so worried about the location and, it having outdoor space that people don't realize that you do it that way, you're going backwards. It's going to take you 2.5 years if you even open. Second generation only. If you can, buy the existing corporation as long as there's no debt on it, as long as there's no SBA, nothing to do with COVID.
That makes sense.
Because with the corporation, everything from a sign to the grease trap updating is much faster.
Well, I didn't think about that. Yeah, that makes sense.
You do even something as stupid as a sign without the corporation will take you. It can take you 6 months.
What's the average you think people spend on having to do a build out for a restaurant?
Probably around $500-$600 a foot. And now with all the tariffs, building material is going to get even more expensive.
Wow!
So something else to take into consideration.
Yeah. What do you see like restaurants like revenue numbers ever? Or, yeah. And what's the average restaurant? What do you think that they're making?
It depends. There's restaurants that. So landlords and developers love to like point out somebody like Mila, which is a 1 in a million thing that, everybody knows does probably some of the strongest numbers in the country. Joe Stonecrab.
Yeah.
There's a reason why Joe Stonecrab doesn't stop being in that top 50 revenue things. They don't want people to know how much they make. Like they don't, There's restaurants, I'm not going to name them who, they love putting all their restaurants in there. Yeah. But, the real guys just don't, they don't want people seeing their numbers. If you're 1,000 square foot restaurant, anything between 1.8 to 3 million is a huge win. If you're doing,
$100,000 a month. No, a little bit more, 100,000.
If you're averaging, $300,000 a month, I think you're in a good place.
You're a solid restaurant.
For smaller concept, you're solid.
That's good.
How
about food trucks? Do you have food trucks at all? Or no?
I used to have a food truck.
No way.
In the day, yeah.
Oh.
It was so I came in towards the end, but this was like 2011, and I came in on the Cheese Me truck.
Cheese Me.
Do you remember Cheese Me? It was one of the original.
I think so.
It was when Richard Hale was still doing all those.
Richard Hale, my boy Richard. Yes. Tying into your food truck, what's your favorite cuisine, Felix?
I love pizza. I love sushi. I love Thai.
That's kind of your
what
you go out to eat with.
That's my go-to. I love everything.
But I want to ask you, of a good food truck.
Yes.
I feel like what do you think is making a month? 80 to 100?
No. Listen, Miami food trucks, again, something else. I
see them all the time, and I see a lot of companies start as a food truck, and then they translate into a physical location.
The only people that I know that really nailed it was Matt from El Bagel. Mm-hmm. Who else? Was Apocalypse a truck?
He was.
Pop-up.
He was a pop-up in Wynwood.
Right.
And downtown in front of Space. Yeah. Cheeseburgers.
Right. But overall, the majority of the food trucks, it's very hard. You need a temporary use permit. You can't be. I think it's like 100.
Why do they make everything so tough?
You can't be 100 feet within a residential or another restaurant. Why do they make it tough? Great question. I asked the same question when I came down here and started. Is because when all the food trucks came out and they would go on Washington in South Beach and park next door to somebody that pays $20,000 a rent, the restaurants would lose their shit and they'd be like, I'm paying, this guy could just roll up. And so they made much harder rules.
It's like a third world country, man.
Exactly.
What's happening, you go to Colombia and you have these restaurants and then these people just pop up with a little cart,
Yeah. You know who's doing well? The coffee carts, the coffee food trucks. Those guys are doing well.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that.
The coffee carts are doing very well.
Coffee's necessity.
Yeah.
You want to ask him the question?
You go.
Oh
first,
shit!
You go.
All right.
First.
All right. This is the clickbait.
Love it.
All right, Felix. You go to a bunch of restaurants. You work in restaurants. We need your top 3 favorite restaurants right now that you go to. Not that you've heard of or you think that's good, that you love.
Wow.
Top 3. Start with the third
Only
one.
3, huh?
Start with the third one.
You can give us 5 since you're in the business. That's
5.
That's
5.
No, I don't want to shit on.
This is the-
I'll just start spitting them out.
Good one.
You got to tell us which one and why.
Are we going like fancy or just
No, from
Dives
whatever
or
you're feeling.
whatever.
From to
Save the
top.
best for last.
okay? Pepe's in the Design District. Bez cheesesteak
Yes.
you will have in Florida, hands
Is it
down.
the best I've heard?
It is by hands down
Better than 11th Street?
I think Fuchs is very talented, and I think it's definitely up there. But for me personally,
Better than Schwartz's.
Ryan's cheesesteak was great, and
It's got
honestly,
sesame bun, right?
the bun, and now his Italian sandwich also. I'm gaining so much weight
Damn,
from
take
it.
me on. Let's go together, man.
Like anytime you want to go.
I haven't
I
even
love
gone. I've
this.
heard. Okay, that's a good one. That's number 3. Second?
Number 2, probably Sparrow.
Oh.
You want a night out, you want a date night, you want to take out-of-towners. For me, Sparrow, the music, the vibe, listen, going in and seeing a beautiful, soulful woman singing Nas and Wu-Tang,
Wow.
for me,
That's a good vibe.
while you have the
You
best
sold me.
carpaccio you've ever had in your life. And
Really?
Oh, damn.
Yeah,
I love
gotta go.
carpaccio.
honestly, with the
Really?
drinks and everything, it's just
And located?
amazing. Wynwood I think 25th,
but
26th, right next door to Q
Okay.
Got it.
in the Moxie.
And numero 1 for Felix.
Hands down, by far, without a doubt, Sonny
Flanagan's.
Steakhouse.
Sonny.
Sonny Steakhouse. 100%.
I haven't been, bro.
Will carry Aaron Brooks. We knew
Oh,
during.
Aaron's got part of that?
Oh, shit.
Our
man, he's the chef
producer's been wanting to go to Sonny's for a while.
Anytime you guys wanna
Hey, we really, I'm serious. I'm gonna
Edge.
That's right. Edge Steakhouse in the Four Seasons.
Actually, Chef Aaron was my first Instagram follow.
You know what? Sonny's has been mentioned here multiple times
Yeah.
by
I didn't know
people
that
who are in
Aaron-
the industry.
I didn't know Aaron had a part of that. I'm going to send him a message.
Aaron, by far, one of the most underrated chefs in the game because he was at
Low-key.
the Edge.
He's a
So
low-key
he's
guy.
so low key,
low-key guy.
such a gentleman.
He's a low-key
But
guy.
also-
He's Aussie, right? He's
Yeah, he's Australian.
Yeah.
But Will and Carrie, you want to talk about guys that like paid their dues and like really worked their way up. I mean, they did this thing during COVID, out of there was nothing there. Like it was literally like wood fire and rain, and those guys just figured out how to make it the most incredible space where you just feel like you're on vacation. You go there and you're outside, and the drinks, and the music, and the vibe, and the food. And the price point. It's
Can you eat there during the summer, Felix?
I eat there probably 3 times a week.
When you're
Oh, wow.
all outside?
And what's the
It is the majority outside.
Majority.
I mean, aside from the things that you have off the menu, I mean the steaks and the tartars. How about this? And just the fact that they take you back to, people ask me, what do you see with trends? I'm like, things that just take you back to your childhood.
Yeah.
The fact that like their dessert is like an ice cream sandwich, but they make it out of like a croissant. For me, it just literally icing on the cake.
Icing on the cake.
Are they open for lunch?
No, after 5 p.m.
It's ready to
I wish.
go.
I wish.
It's
God,
ready
you
to
have
go.
no idea. Like everyone's been hyping it up. They've mentioned it to me a bunch of times. All my friends want to go.
We gotta go.
I haven't been able to have a chance to go because every time I go get a reservation, it's like 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 9 p.m., 10. Never mind.
Eddie can't
I
stay
will
awake.
call, and anything I can get, I will take.
I appreciate it, man.
Last one. What does current Felix tell 18-year-old Felix, if you could tell him something?
Buy as much second-gen restaurant real estate as humanly possible.
Really?
Because that, for me, is the only safe bet in Miami. And whether things go up or down, the demand for restaurant space outweighs the inventory, and it always will.
Actually, I have one last question for you.
Yes.
You've been living in Boston. Well, you grew up in Boston.
I did college in Boston.
You
yeah.
did college in Boston. You grew up in Brooklyn.
Yep.
And now you're living in Miami. What is the better city to grow up in or live in?
I'll never leave Miami again.
Yeah.
Miami is the best. listen, just
because there's a lot of people who shit on Miami, man.
they can stay up north. For me, the most amount of dreamers and hustlers and entrepreneurs, everybody comes down because you know what? You could start over again here. You could be a big fish in a small pond down here. You can live out your dream, and it's not a bad place to retire to either. You have so many different cultures. You have so many different foods. You have so many different peoples. It's just, it's a dream.
Yeah, I feel like back then it was kind of like the old saying was, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. I think now if you can make it in Miami, you can make it anywhere, man.
Absolutely.
You got to be rich.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you know what? I've seen more restaurant chefs like open down here, and it's just so refreshing to see, young chefs and chefs from like Ecuador. Like, have you been to Katoa yet?
No.
They just took a space in North Miami, Ecuadorian food.
Wow.
She made a whole thing out of Ecuador. I didn't even know you could make Ecuadorian food a real cuisine, and Alejandro figured it out.
We gotta check that out.
Felix, that's the expert.
Brother, a real pleasure, man. We gotta have you back, man.
Let them know your Instagram is
F+B Miami, baby. F+B Miami.
F+B Miami for everything restaurant. Thank you so much, brother. It's a true honor to have you on.
Yeah,
thank you, guys.
And that's a wrap, guys. Thank you.